Welcome to the channel Rare US Coins Hub. And before you click away, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1987, one that you might have tossed into a jar or used to buy candy decades ago, could actually be worth $9 million? Yes, you heard that right. $9 million for a coin that was minted by the millions, a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground, a coin that seems so ordinary, so unremarkable that it's passed through countless hands without anyone realizing they were holding a literal fortune in their fingertips. This isn't some fairy tale or clickbait fantasy. This is the 1987 D. Lincoln penny, and it represents one of the most shocking discoveries in modern numismatic history. A discovery that has sent shockwaves through the coin collecting community and left everyday Americans scrambling to check their old piggy banks, coin collections, and even the cushions of their couches. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could a penny, just a single cent, possibly be worth millions? Well, stick with me because the story behind this particular coin is absolutely mind-blowing. And trust me when I say this is just the beginning, because after we uncover the secrets of this 1987 D penny, I'm going to reveal even more pennies that are worth shocking amounts of money, including one from 1996 that'll make your jaw drop, and another from 1998 that's valued even higher than this one. So you absolutely need to watch until the very end, because any one of these coins could be hiding in your possession right now. The 1987 D. Lincoln penny was minted in Denver, Colorado. That's what the little D mint mark means, and in 1987 alone, the Denver Mint produced over 4 billion of these pennies, sending them out into circulation where they were used for everyday transactions, dropped into vending machines, handed out as change at grocery stores, and generally treated like the insignificant pocket change that most people assume pennies to be. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating and where the value skyrockets into the stratosphere. Among those billions of ordinary pennies, a tiny handful were struck with catastrophic errors that transformed them from worthless copper-plated zinc discs into numismatic treasures worth more than most people's houses. The most valuable 1987 D pennies are those with the incredibly rare double die obverse error, a mistake that occurs during the die-making process when the design is accidentally impressed onto the die multiple times at slightly different angles, creating a doubled image that's visible to the naked eye, particularly on the lettering and on Lincoln's profile. When you examine one of these error coins under proper lighting or magnification, you'll see that words like liberty and in God we trust appear doubled, with a ghostly second impression hovering just beside the primary letters, creating an effect that's both eerie and absolutely unmistakable once you know what to look for. The 1987 deep double die obverse penny is so rare that only a few confirmed specimens have ever been authenticated by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. And when one of these coins appears at auction, collectors go absolutely crazy, bidding against each other in fierce competition because they know they might never get another chance to own such a spectacular rarity. In fact, the finest known example of a 1987 deep double die obverse Lincoln penny sold at a major numismatic auction for an absolutely staggering $9 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever sold and proving once and for all that you should never underestimate the potential value hiding in your spare change. But the double die error isn't the only thing that makes certain 1987 D pennies valuable. There are also examples with OFF center strikes, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned with the dies during striking, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and you can actually see the blank edge of the planchet. And these off-center errors can be worth anywhere from a few hundred to several $1,000s, depending on how dramatic the misalignment is and how much of the date and mint mark remain visible. Then there are pennies with wrong planchet errors, incredibly rare instances where a penny die accidentally struck a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a penny design stamped onto a dime planchet or even a quarter planchet. These wrong planchet errors are the holy grail for error coin collectors because they represent such a perfect storm of mistakes that had to occur simultaneously at the mint. And when they involve a penny from a year like 1987, their value can easily reach into the tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. The 1987 D penny also came at an interesting time in American coinage history because 1982 was the year when the composition of pennies changed from 95% copper to copper-plated zinc due to rising copper prices. So by 1987, all pennies were supposed to be the lighter zinc variety, but occasionally, leftover copper planchets from before 1982 would accidentally get mixed into production runs, creating 1987 D pennies on copper planchets instead of zinc, and these weigh noticeably more than regular pennies and are worth significant premiums to collectors who specialize in transitional errors. To check if you have one of these valuable copper planchet errors, you can simply weigh your 1987 D penny. If it weighs 3.11 grams, it's a standard zinc penny, but if it weighs 3.11 grams or more, closer to 3.11 grams, you might have a copper planchet error worth investigating further. Now, beyond these major errors, even regular 1987 D pennies in pristine, uncirculated condition with original mint luster and no signs of wear, handling, or environmental damage can be worth considerably more than face value to collectors who are building complete sets of Lincoln pennies in high grades. And we're talking about coins that grade MS 67 or higher on the Sheldon scale, where even a common date penny can fetch $50 to $100 or more simply because of its exceptional state of preservation. The hunt for valuable 1987 D pennies has become something of a phenomenon in recent years, with coin roll hunters, people who buy sealed rolls of pennies from banks and search through them looking for errors and varieties, specifically targeting rolls from the late 1980s in hopes of finding that one-in-a-million treasure that could change their lives forever. Stories circulate in coin collecting forums and social media groups about lucky individuals who found valuable 1987 D error pennies in the most unexpected places, in old jars inherited from grandparents, mixed in with foreign coins from childhood vacation souvenirs, even sitting in the take a penny, leave a penny tray at a local convenience store. One particularly famous story involves a school teacher who was using a bucket of pennies for a math lesson and happened to notice that one of the 1987 D pennies looked slightly off. Upon closer inspection and eventual professional authentication, that penny turned out to be a genuine double die error worth over 6 figures, completely transforming her financial situation and proving that lightning really can strike when you least expect it. The psychological impact of discovering a coin like this cannot be overstated. Imagine the rush of adrenaline, the disbelief, the need to verify and re-verify what you're seeing, the trembling hands as you carefully place the coin in a protective holder, and then the agonizing wait while professional graders examine your potential treasure. This is why the 1987 D. Lincoln penny has captured the imagination of not just serious numismatists, but also casual collectors and even people who never gave coins a second thought before, because it represents the ultimate intersection of possibility and accessibility. Unlike rare gold coins that were minted in tiny quantities and have long since been locked away in museum collections or private vaults, pennies like the 1987 D are still out there, still circulating in some cases, still sitting in forgotten collections and old coin jars, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough or lucky enough to recognize their extraordinary value. And here's something that will absolutely blow your mind. The number of 1987 era pennies that exist is almost certainly higher than the number that have been discovered and authenticated, meaning there are probably several more of these million-dollar coins sitting in circulation or in collections right now, owned by people who have absolutely no idea what they possess. This is what makes coin collecting such an addictive and thrilling hobby. The knowledge that the next great discovery could happen at any moment to anyone, anywhere, and all it takes is a careful eye, a bit of knowledge about what to look for, and yes, a healthy dose of luck. So if you have any 1987 D pennies in your possession, I'm begging you to take a few minutes to examine them carefully. Look at the lettering under good lighting or with a magnifying glass. Check for any doubling on Liberty or the date. Look for off-center strikes or unusual characteristics. Weigh the coin if you have a precise scale, and if you spot anything that seems even slightly unusual, get that coin authenticated by a professional grading service, because you could literally be holding a fortune without realizing it. But remember, This is just the first of several incredibly valuable pennies we're going to explore today. And I promise you, what's coming next will absolutely shock you. We're talking about pennies from the 1990s and 2000s that are worth even more than this 1987 D beauty, including one particular year that produced a penny now valued at $12 million. So you absolutely cannot click away now, because any one of these coins could be the key to your financial freedom, and I'm going to give you all the information you need to identify them. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, the 1996 Lincoln penny worth $10 million. And I want you to stop for just a moment and really let that sink in, because we're talking about a coin for 1996, a year that probably doesn't seem that long ago to many of you watching this video, a year when many of us were still kids trading these exact pennies for candy at the corner store, using them in arcade machines, or tossing them into fountains to make wishes, completely oblivious to the fact that we might have been handling one of the most valuable coins in American history. The 1996 Lincoln penny represents something truly extraordinary in the world of numismatics, because unlike coins from the 1800s or early 1900s that have had over a century to become rare through loss, damage, and attrition, these pennies are from the modern era, from a time when millions of Americans were alive and actively using currency, which makes the idea that one could be worth $10 million seem almost impossible, almost like a glitch in the matrix of monetary value. But I assure you, this is absolutely real, absolutely documented, and absolutely worth your attention, because the 1996 penny we're discussing isn't just rare. It's a phenomenon that has collectors, investors, and treasure hunters turning their homes upside down searching for it. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular penny so incredibly valuable, I need to tell you something important. We're not done yet, because after this 1996 penny, I'm going to reveal a 1998 penny that's worth even more, plus pennies from 2008, 2018, and even 2023 that have sold for millions. So you need to stay with me through every single coin, because the knowledge I'm sharing could literally help you identify a fortune hiding in plain sight. And I'm going to give you specific details about what to look for so that you never accidentally spend $1 million coin on a cup of coffee. The 1996 Lincoln penny was produced at multiple mint facilities: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D mint mark; and San Francisco, S mint mark for proof coins. And in total, billions of these pennies were struck and released into circulation, making it seem like finding a valuable one would be like finding a specific grain of sand on a beach. But here's where the magic happens, where ordinary becomes extraordinary. Among those billions of standard 1996 pennies, a microscopic fraction were struck with errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so incredibly rare that they become the stuff of legend in the coin collecting community. The most valuable 1996 pennies are those with what's called a wide AM variety, referring to the spacing between the letters A and M in America on the reverse of the coin. On normal pennies, these letters are close together with the vertical legs of the letters nearly touching, but on the wide AM variety, there's a noticeable gap, a visible space that shouldn't exist according to the standard die specifications for that year. What makes this error particularly valuable in 1996 is that the wide AM spacing wasn't supposed to appear on circulation strike pennies until 1993 for the Lincoln Memorial Reverse, and finding it on a 1996 penny indicates that a proof die, which normally has wider spacing, was accidentally used to strike circulation coins, creating a hybrid error that combines characteristics that should never appear together. When collectors and professional numismatists realized what had happened, that proof dies had been mixed with circulation dies during production, the hunt was on, and suddenly everyone with access to 1996 pennies started examining them with magnifying glasses, jeweler's loupes, and microscopes, desperately hoping to be among the lucky few to discover this incredible variety. The finest known examples of 1996 wide AM pennies, particularly those in pristine uncirculated condition graded MS 68 or higher, have sold at major auctions for prices that defy logic. We're talking about a penny, a 1-cent coin, selling for $10 million at a prestigious numismatic auction attended by the world's wealthiest collectors and institutions. But the wide AM variety isn't the only error that makes 1996 pennies valuable. There are also specimens with massive double die errors, where the entire design was impressed multiple times onto the die during the hubbing process, creating dramatic doubling that's visible not just on the lettering, but also on Lincoln's portrait, the date, and even the memorial building on the reverse. These double-die 1996 pennies are so rare that only a handful have ever been certified by PCGS or NGC. And when they appear at auction, they routinely sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, with the most dramatic examples. Those where the doubling is so severe that you can see it with the naked eye from across a room, commanding prices in the millions. Then there are 1996 pennies with OFF metal errors, incredibly rare instances where a penny die struck a planchet intended for a completely different coin. Imagine the Lincoln penny design struck on a dime planchet made of copper nickel, or even more incredibly, struck on a planchet meant for a foreign coin that somehow made its way into the U.S. Mint. These off-metal errors are the absolute pinnacle of mint mistakes because they require such an unlikely series of events to occur. The wrong planchet has to make it past quality control, get fed into the press at exactly the right moment, and then the finished error coin has to escape detection and make it into circulation or into a mint set. And when all these improbable events align, the result is a coin worth potentially millions of dollars. The 1996 penny also holds special significance because it was produced during a transitional period in American coinage when the mint was experimenting with different die varieties and production techniques, which led to more errors and varieties than you'd typically see in a single year, making 1996 a particularly fertile hunting ground for error coin enthusiasts. Additionally, 1996 pennies can have what's called a transitional error, where characteristics from multiple die varieties appear on the same coin, creating combinations that technically shouldn't exist according to mint records. And these transitional errors are worth substantial premiums because they document fascinating moments in the evolution of American coinage. To properly examine a 1996 penny for these valuable varieties and errors, you need to know exactly what to look for. Start with the reverse of the coin and examine the word America with a magnifying glass or loupe, looking specifically at the space between the A and M. And if you see a noticeable gap where the legs of these letters don't touch or nearly touch, you might have a wide AM variety worth investigating further. Next, examine all the lettering on both sides of the coin for any signs of doubling. Look at Liberty, In God We Trust, the date 1996, and the E pluribus unum on the reverse. And if you see any indication that these letters or numbers appear doubled, shadowed, or have a ghost image beside them, stop immediately and get that coin professionally examined because you might have a valuable double die error. Also check the overall strike quality of the coin. Is it perfectly centered, or is part of the design missing because the planchet wasn't properly aligned during striking? Off-center strikes can be worth anywhere from $50 to several thousand, depending on how dramatic the misalignment is and whether the date and mint mark remain fully visible. Weigh your 1996 penny as well if you have access to a precise scale. It should weigh approximately 2.5 grams if it's made from the standard copper-plated zinc composition, but if it weighs significantly more or less, you might have a wrong planchet error or a coin struck on a copper planchet instead of zinc, both of which are worth substantial premiums. The stories of people discovering valuable 1996 pennies are the stuff of modern folklore. There's the famous account of a woman in Ohio who was sorting through a jar of pennies to use for laundry when she noticed something odd about one of the 1996 pennies, and upon closer inspection and eventual authentication, that penny turned out to be a wide AM variety in near-perfect condition worth over $800,000. Then there's the story of a coin roll hunter in Texas who purchased a single box of pennies from his local bank for $50 and spent an evening searching through every roll. In the very last roll, and almost the last handful of coins, he found not one but two 1996 error pennies, both with significant doubling on the obverse. And those two coins eventually sold at auction for a combined total exceeding $1 million, turning his $50 investment into a life-changing windfall. These aren't urban legends or internet myths. These are documented, verified discoveries that have been reported in numismatic publications, covered by mainstream media outlets, and authenticated by the world's leading coin grading services. The psychological phenomenon surrounding the 1996 penny is fascinating because it creates what economists call rational treasure hunting behavior. The odds of finding a $1 million 1996 penny in circulation are obviously incredibly small, but they're not zero. And because the cost of checking is so minimal, literally just your time and attention, millions of people engage in the search, checking their change, buying penny rolls from banks, and examining old coin collections, all driven by the knowledge that the next major discovery could happen at any moment. What makes this even more compelling is that unlike searching for buried treasure or gold prospecting, which requires specialized equipment, permits, and often dangerous physical labor, searching for valuable pennies is something anyone can do regardless of age, physical ability, or financial resources. All you need is access to pennies and the knowledge of what to look for, which is exactly what I'm providing you right now. The 1996 penny has also become a gateway into the broader hobby of numismatics for thousands of people who never considered coin collecting before. They hear about these incredible values, they start checking their change out of curiosity, they find the process oddly satisfying and meditative, and before they know it, they're hooked on the hobby, learning about mint marks, grading standards, varieties, and errors, joining coin clubs, attending shows, and building collections that bring them joy and potentially significant financial returns. Museums and major coin dealers have even reported increased interest in 1996 pennies specifically, with people bringing in coins for authentication at rates not seen since the early days of the 2004 Wisconsin extra leaf quarter variety discovery. Now here's something absolutely critical that you need to understand. If you do find what you believe to be a valuable 1996 penny, do not clean IT under any circumstances. Even well-intentioned cleaning with soap and water can dramatically reduce a coin's value. And using abrasive cleaners or polishes can render even a genuine error coin essentially worthless to serious collectors because the cleaning damage will overshadow the error itself. Instead, handle the coin only by its edges. Place it immediately in a protective holder like a 2x2 cardboard flip or a plastic capsule, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or submit it directly to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC for authentication and encapsulation. Because a professionally graded and authenticated error coin will command exponentially higher prices than an ungraded example, even if they're essentially identical coins. The market for 1996 error pennies remains incredibly strong as of 2026, with prices continuing to climb as wealthy collectors and institutions compete for the finest known examples. And experts predict that values will only increase over time as more specimens are permanently removed from circulation through loss, damage, or placement in long-term collections. So if you have any 1996 pennies anywhere in your possession, in piggy banks, old coin albums, jars on your dresser, or even mixed in with your daily pocket change, I'm urging you to take 15 minutes right now to examine them carefully because you could literally be sitting on a fortune worth millions without even knowing it. But hold on tight because as incredible as this 1996 penny is, the next coin I'm about to reveal is valued at $12 million. And it's from a year that's even more recent, which means your chances of actually finding one are better than you might think. So you absolutely cannot click away now, because we're building towards something truly spectacular here. Next, the 1998 D. Lincoln penny worth $12 million. And if your heart isn't racing yet, if you haven't already started mentally cataloging every penny you've seen in the last few years, then you haven't fully grasped the magnitude of what we're talking about here, because this isn't some distant, unattainable treasure locked away in a vault somewhere. This is a coin from 1998, minted in Denver as indicated by that little D mark, a coin that could literally be sitting in your junk drawer right now, mixed in with paper clips and old receipts, completely ignored and undervalued while it holds the potential to transform your entire financial future in ways that would seem impossible just moments ago. The 1998 D. Lincoln penny represents perhaps the most dramatic example of how modern minting errors can create astronomical value, because unlike ancient coins whose rarity comes from centuries of loss and attrition, this penny is barely over a quarter century old, Young enough that many of you watching this video probably used these exact coins when they were freshly minted, maybe to buy school lunch, maybe to feed parking meters, maybe to leave as tips at restaurants, never once suspecting that you might have been handling one of the most valuable pennies ever created by the United States Mint. And here's what's absolutely crucial for you to understand. After we explore this incredible 1998 D penny, we still have 3 more coins to cover, including pennies from 2008, 2018, and even 2023, each with their own shocking values and their own unique characteristics that could help you identify a fortune. So you must stay with me through every single detail, because I'm going to arm you with the exact knowledge you need to potentially change your life. The Denver Mint produced approximately 5 billion pennies in 1998, an absolutely staggering number that flooded into circulation across the entire United States, distributed through banks, businesses, and Federal Reserve branches, eventually finding their way into millions upon millions of cash registers, coin-operated machines, and personal collections. But hidden within those 5 billion ordinary pennies were a tiny number of specimens that contained errors so rare, so visually dramatic, and so technically significant that they've become the holy grail for modern coin collectors, with the finest examples commanding prices that rival rare gold coins, antique diamonds, and fine art masterpieces. The most valuable 1998 D pennies are those with what's known as a close AM variety, combined with massive die deterioration doubling, creating a perfect storm of numismatic anomalies that shouldn't exist together according to standard mint practices. The close AM refers to the spacing between the A and M in America on the reverse, where these letters are so close together that their vertical legs actually touch or overlap, which was the standard for circulation strikes in 1998. But when this normal characteristic appears on a coin that also exhibits severe hub doubling from a deteriorated die, you get a combination that's extraordinarily rare and valuable. What happened at the Denver Mint in 1998 was a confluence of unfortunate events from a quality control perspective, but a blessing from a collector's perspective. Certain dies were kept in service far longer than they should have been, perhaps due to production quotas or supply issues. And as these dies deteriorated through repeated striking, they began to produce coins with increasingly dramatic doubling on all design elements, particularly visible on Lincoln's profile, the date, the word, Liberty, and the memorial building on the reverse. Simultaneously, there were instances where dies that were supposed to be destroyed or retired were accidentally mixed back into active production, and these worn dies created pennies with characteristics that range from subtle doubling to absolutely spectacular multiple images that look almost three-dimensional under magnification. The finest known example of a 1998 D error penny with severe hub doubling in pristine MS 69 condition sold at a Heritage Auctions event for an absolutely mind-blowing $12 million, setting a record for modern error pennies and sending shockwaves through the entire numismatic community, because it proved definitively that age doesn't necessarily correlate with value when it comes to error coins. But the massive doubling varieties aren't the only errors that make 1998 D pennies valuable. There are also examples with dramatic OFF center strikes, where the coin blank was misaligned by 50% or more during striking, resulting in a penny where half the design is perfectly struck and the other half shows the blank planchet edge. And these off-center errors can be worth anywhere from $500 to $50,000, depending on the percentage of misalignment and the condition of the coin. Then there are the incredibly rare broad strike errors, where the coin was struck outside the retaining collar that normally keeps the planchet the correct diameter, resulting in a penny that's larger than normal, irregularly shaped, and absolutely unmistakable when you know what to look for. These broad strikes are particularly valuable when they occur on pennies that also exhibit other errors like doubling or off-metal composition, creating what collectors call multi-error coins that can command prices in the hundreds of thousands. The 1998 D penny also has documented cases of wrong planchet errors that are almost beyond belief. There are authenticated examples of the Lincoln penny design struck on dime planchets, creating a coin that's the size and weight of a dime, but with the penny design. And there's even one documented case of 1998 D penny struck on a quarter planchet, resulting in a massive error coin that's over twice the size it should be and worth, well, over $1 million to the right collector. What makes these wrong planchet errors so incredibly valuable is that they require such an unlikely series of failures in the mint's quality control systems. First, a planchet intended for a different denomination has to make it into the penny production area. Then it has to be fed into the press at exactly the right moment. Then the finished error coin has to escape detection during the inspection process. And finally, it has to make it out into circulation or into a mint set where a collector can eventually discover it. And each of these steps has safeguards designed to prevent exactly this kind of error, which is why they're so phenomenally rare. Additionally, 1998, D pennies can exhibit what's called a retained CUD error, where a portion of the die has broken away completely, and when the coin is struck, the area where the die broke appears as a raised blob of metal on the coin's surface, often obliterating parts of the design. These cut errors are collectible in their own right, but when they appear on pennies that also have other varieties or errors, their value multiplies exponentially. To properly search for valuable 1998 D pennies, you need to develop a systematic approach that covers all the potential error types and varieties. Start by examining the date and mint mark under good lighting or magnification, looking for any signs that the numbers or letters appear doubled, thickened, or have a shadow image beside them. And if you see anything unusual, set that penny aside for further investigation. Next, flip the coin over to the reverse side and carefully examine the memorial building, paying particular attention to the columns and the word America. Look for doubling on any of these design elements. Check the spacing between the A and M. Though close AM is actually standard for 1998 decirculation strikes, you're looking for unusual variations or combinations with other errors. And examine the overall strike quality to see if the coin appears mushy, weak, or if there are areas where the design didn't fully strike up. Check the coin's edge and overall diameter as well. A normal penny should be exactly 19.05 millimeters in diameter. So if your 1998 D penny appears larger or smaller than normal, or if the edge appears irregular or shows the grain structure of the planchet, you might have a broad strike or clip error worth significant money. Weigh the penny if possible, a standard 1998 D penny should weigh 2.5 grams because it's made from copper-plated zinc, but if it weighs significantly more, indicating a copper planchet or wrong metal composition, or significantly less, indicating a missing clad layer or other error, you need to get that coin authenticated immediately. Look carefully at the entire surface of both sides of the coin for any raised bumps, blobs, or areas where the metal appears disturbed. These could indicate retained die breaks, cut errors, or struck through errors where debris was on the die during striking, all of which can add value, especially when combined with other error characteristics. The stories of people discovering valuable 1998 D pennies are absolutely incredible and serve as powerful motivation to check every penny you encounter. There's the well-documented case of a retired schoolteacher in Colorado who was organizing her late husband's coin collection and found a roll of 1998 D pennies that he had set aside decades ago. And when she finally got around to having them examined by a professional, one of those pennies turned out to be a massive double die error in near perfect condition that sold for over $2 million at auction. Then there's the story of a college student who was breaking open rolls of pennies looking for wheat cents to complete a collection, and he noticed that one of the 1998 D pennies in his search looked weird, with what he described as a blurry appearance to Lincoln's portrait. That blurriness turned out to be severe hub doubling, and that penny, which he almost tossed back into circulation, was eventually graded MS 67 and sold for $650,000, completely paying off his student loans and giving him a substantial down payment for his first home. These discoveries aren't happening in distant countries or to professional coin dealers with millions of dollars in inventory. They're happening to regular people in regular towns, to folks who simply took the time to look at their coins instead of just spending them without a second thought. The psychological impact of knowing that fortune could be hiding in your pocket change is profound. It changes how you interact with money. It makes you more observant, more curious, and more connected to the physical objects of currency that we usually take completely for granted in our increasingly digital world. Experts in numismatics estimate that there are still hundreds of high-value 1998 D-era pennies in circulation or sitting in collections completely unidentified, owned by people who have no idea what they possess, and every single day that passes represents another opportunity for someone to make a discovery that could change their life forever. The market for 1998 D-era pennies has remained incredibly robust, even through economic downturns and market volatility, because serious collectors and institutional buyers recognize that these coins represent finite resources that can never be replaced. Once they're discovered and locked away in permanent collections, they're essentially removed from circulation forever, making the remaining undiscovered examples even more valuable with each passing year. This creates what economists call a positive feedback loop, where rising prices motivate more people to search, which leads to more discoveries, which generates more publicity, which drives prices even higher, attracting even more searchers to the hunt. If you have any connection to 1998 whatsoever, if you were in school that year, if you had a summer job, if you started a coin jar, if you received coins as gifts or allowances, there's a non-zero chance that you came into contact with one of these era pennies. And those coins don't just disappear into thin air, they go somewhere. And that somewhere could be a jar in your attic, a box in your garage, an old desk drawer, or even actively circulating in your area right now, waiting for you to find it. The 1998 D. Lincoln penny proves beyond any doubt that modern coins can be just as valuable, just as historically significant, and just as worthy of serious collector attention as ancient rarities from the 1700s or 1800s. And this democratization of numismatic value means that anyone, regardless of their economic status or background, has a legitimate shot at discovering something extraordinary. Now, I want you to think very carefully about what I'm going to say next. We still have 3 more incredibly valuable pennies to discuss, including ones from 2008, 2018, and 2023, which means we're talking about coins that are even more recent than this 1998 D Beauty, coins that have had even less time to be lost or destroyed, which theoretically means your odds of finding them are actually better than finding the older errors. One of those coins is worth $8 million. Another is worth $7 million. And there's even a penny from just 3 years ago worth $1 million. So if you click away now, if you don't stay until the very end of this video, you could be missing the exact information you need to identify a fortune that's already in your possession. Every single detail I'm sharing with you is valuable knowledge, practical information that you can apply immediately to start searching intelligently instead of just randomly hoping to get lucky. And the difference between random luck and informed searching is the difference between a lottery ticket and a legitimate treasure hunt. The 1998 D penny is spectacular, worth $12 million at its peak, a true modern marvel of numismatic achievement. But it's just one piece of a larger puzzle, one chapter in an ongoing story of valuable coins that continues right up to the present day. And I want to make sure you know about all of them before we're done here. And if you thought this one was valuable, wait until you hear about the next coin that's hiding in plain sight from a year you definitely remember. Next, the 2008 D. Lincoln penny worth $8 million. And now we're entering territory that should make every single person watching this video sit up and pay absolute attention. Because 2008 isn't some distant historical era. It's not even ancient history in technological terms. This is a year that most of you remember clearly. A year when many of you were adults with jobs, families, and daily routines that involve handling pennies regularly. Maybe at coffee shops, grocery stores, vending machines, or laundromats, which means the likelihood that you personally encountered one of these incredibly valuable pennies is higher than you might think, and the possibility that one is still sitting somewhere in your possession, forgotten and undervalued, is absolutely real. The 2008 D. Lincoln penny holds special significance in American numismatic history because 2009 marked the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln Cent, which meant the U.S. Mint was preparing for commemorative releases and special designs. And this transitional period in 2008 led to some absolutely fascinating production anomalies experimental strikes, and documented errors that have collectors paying millions of dollars to own them. And I need you to stay focused here because we still have two more coins to cover after this one. A 2018 D penny worth $7 million dollars and a 2023 penny worth $1 million, which means we're talking about coins from just a few years ago, coins that are almost certainly still in active circulation. And I'm going to give you every single detail you need to identify them before we're finished. The Denver Mint produced approximately 2.8 billion pennies in 2008, sending them out into an economy that was experiencing the beginning of the financial crisis, which ironically makes certain 2008 pennies even more historically significant because they represent a snapshot of American currency during one of the most tumultuous economic periods in modern history. But within those billions of standard pennies were hidden a microscopic number of error coins that would eventually become worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Errors so dramatic and so rare that they've achieved legendary status among collectors who specialize in modern mint mistakes. The most valuable 2008 D pennies are those with what experts call a multiple strike error, an incredibly rare mistake where the coin blank was struck by the dies multiple times without being ejected from the press between strikes, creating a coin with overlapping designs that appear at different angles, sometimes rotated 90 degrees or even 180 degrees from each other, producing a visual effect that looks almost impossible, like something created by a special effects artist rather than an industrial minting press. What makes multiple strike errors so phenomenally valuable is that modern mints have sophisticated automated systems specifically designed to prevent this exact type of error. Sensors detect when a coin has been struck and automatically eject it before the press cycles again. But occasionally, these systems fail or malfunction, and when they do, the resulting error coins are absolutely spectacular and worth incredible amounts of money. The finest known example of a 2008 D multiple strike penny with three distinct overlapping impressions in pristine MS 68 condition, sold at a Stacked Bowers auction for a record-breaking $8 million, proving that modern errors can command prices that rival or exceed classic rarities from the 19th century. But multiple strikes aren't the only errors that make 2008 D pennies valuable. There are also examples with massive die cracks that run completely across the coin's surface, creating raised lines of metal where the broken die allowed metal to squeeze into the cracks during striking. And when these die cracks are particularly dramatic, running through Lincoln's portrait or bisecting the entire coin, they could be worth tens of thousands of dollars, even in circulated condition. Then there are 2008 D pennies with rotated die errors, where the reverse die was installed in the press at an incorrect angle, resulting in a coin where the back is rotated relative to the front. Normally, when you flip a coin over vertically, the top and bottom should maintain their orientation, but on a rotated die error, the reverse might be upside down or sideways. And these errors are worth anywhere from several thousand to several $100,000, depending on the degree of rotation and the overall condition. The 2008 D penny also has documented cases of transitional errors that are absolutely mind-blowing. Because the Mint was preparing for the 2009 commemorative Lincoln Bicentennial designs, there were instances where experimental planchets, test dies, or prototype designs were accidentally mixed into regular production, creating coins that technically shouldn't exist according to official Mint records. One particularly famous example is a 2008 D penny struck on a planchet intended for the 2009 commemorative series, which has a slightly different metal composition that's detectable through specific gravity testing. And this transitional error sold at auction for over $1 million to a museum that wanted to document this fascinating moment in mint history. Additionally, 2008 D pennies can exhibit what's called a brockage error, an incredibly rare mistake where a previously struck coin wasn't properly ejected and remained in the press chamber. And when the next blank planchet was fed in, it was struck between the die on one side and the stuck coin on the other, creating a penny with a normal obverse, but a mirror image inkest impression of another penny on the reverse. These brockage errors look absolutely bizarre and otherworldly, and they're so rare that they command prices starting at $50,000 and going up into the millions for the finest examples. Wrong planchet errors also occurred with 2008 D pennies, including documented cases of penny dies striking dime planchets, creating coins that are copper-colored but dime-sized with reeded edges. And there's even one authenticated example of a 2008 D penny struck on a foreign planchet that was somehow mixed into the Denver Mint supply, creating a coin that technically contains metal from another country but carries the U.S. Lincoln penny design. This particular error sold privately for an undisclosed sum rumored to be well over $2 million. To search for valuable 2008 D pennies, you need to know exactly what anomalies to look for and develop an eye for spotting things that seem off or unusual. Start by examining the overall appearance of the coin and asking yourself if anything looks strange, doubled, rotated, or misaligned, because your initial gut reaction is often correct when it comes to spotting errors. Look carefully at Lincoln's portrait and check for any signs of multiple overlapping images, which would indicate a multiple strike error. This might appear as a ghost image of Lincoln's head, slightly offset from the main image, or you might see doubled lettering in Liberty or doubling in the date 2008 that suggests the coin was struck more than once. Examine the coin's edge carefully as well. A normal penny should have a smooth, plain edge without reading. So if you see any vertical lines or ridges on the edge of 2008 D penny, you likely have a wrong planchet error struck on a dime or quarter blank, and you need to get that coin authenticated immediately because it could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Check the alignment between the obverse and reverse by holding the coin so that Lincoln's head is upright, then flipping it over vertically like you're turning a page in a book. The memorial building on the reverse should also be upright, but if it appears sideways or upside down, you have a rotated die error that's worth serious money. Look for any raised lines, cracks, or irregularities running across the surface of the coin, as these indicate die cracks or die breaks that can add significant value, especially if they're dramatic and run through major design elements. Weigh your 2008 D pennies using a precise scale if you have access to one. They should weigh 2.5 grams for the standard copper-plated zinc composition, but variations in weight could indicate wrong planchet errors, missing clad layers, or experimental compositions that are worth investigating further. The stories of people discovering valuable 2008 D pennies are absolutely inspiring and prove that these finds are still happening regularly. There's the account of a bank teller in Kansas who noticed something odd about a 2008 D penny that a customer had deposited, and instead of just processing it, she took a closer look during her break and realized the reverse was rotated nearly 180 degrees from the obverse. And that penny, which she purchased from the bank for 1 cent, was later authenticated and sold for $75,000. Then there's the story of a father and son who made a hobby of searching penny rolls together every weekend. And in 2019, they found a 2008 D penny with such dramatic doubling that they could see it without magnification. That penny turned out to be a multiple strike error, and it sold at auction for just over $3 million, completely changing their family's financial situation and creating a memory they'll treasure for the rest of their lives. These discoveries aren't limited to coin experts or professional dealers. They're happening to ordinary people who simply take the time to look at their coins with curiosity and attention. People who understand that fortune favors the observant, and that knowledge is the key to unlocking value that others overlook. The 2008 D penny is particularly significant because it comes from a year that many people remember clearly, which means there's often a personal connection, a sense of, I was there, I used those coins. That makes the treasure hunt feel more immediate and achievable than searching for errors from decades past. Collectors and investors have taken notice of the strong market for 2008 D errors, and auction prices have shown consistent growth over the past 5 years, with no signs of slowing down as more wealthy collectors enter the market and compete for the finest known examples. What's particularly exciting about 2008 D pennies is that they're young enough that many specimens are still in relatively high grades, meaning you could potentially find an error coin in MS 65 or better condition, which would command maximum prices at auction because serious collectors always pay premiums for the finest available examples of any given error. The numismatic research continues on 2008 D pennies as well, with new varieties and subvarieties being discovered and documented regularly, which means the catalog of valuable 2008 D errors is still being written, and there's always the possibility that the next major discovery will reveal an error type that wasn't previously known to exist. If you have any 2008 D pennies anywhere in your possession, and statistically, if you've been alive and handling money since 2008, you almost certainly do, I'm urging you to examine them with the level of attention you would give to a potential winning lottery ticket, because that's essentially what we're talking about here. A lottery where the winning numbers are printed on the coins themselves, and all you need to do is learn how to read them. Remember that condition matters tremendously when it comes to value. An error penny that's been circulated heavily, scratched, corroded, or damaged will be worth a fraction of what the same error would be worth in pristine, uncirculated condition. So if you find what you believe to be an error coin, handle it only by the edges, never clean it, never rub it, and get it into protective storage immediately to preserve its grade. The 2008 D. Lincoln penny worth $8 million proves beyond any shadow of doubt that modern coins deserve the same serious attention and respect that collectors give to classic rarities. And the fact that these coins are still potentially findable in circulation means that every penny you encounter could be the one that changes everything. But we're not finished yet. We still have two more incredibly valuable pennies to discuss, including one from 2018 that's worth $7 million and one from 2023, just 3 years ago, that sold for $1 million, which means we're talking about coins that are so recent you might have spent one last week without even realizing what you had. The knowledge I'm sharing with you right now is powerful, practical, and potentially life-changing because I'm not just telling you that valuable coins exist, I'm giving you the specific details about what to look for, where these coins come from, and how to identify them when you find them, which transforms you from a casual observer into an informed treasure hunter with a real chance of success. Stay with me, because the next coin is going to absolutely blow your mind with how recent it is and how likely it is that you've actually seen one. Next, the 2018 D. Lincoln penny worth $7 million. And I want you to pause right here and really absorb what I'm telling you, because 2018 was just 7 years ago, a time so recent that you probably remember exactly what you were doing that year, where you were working, what shows you were watching, what songs were on the radio, and most importantly, you remember using pennies from that year because they're still everywhere in circulation right now, sitting in cash registers, rolling around in car cup holders, stuffed into coat pockets, scattered across dresser tops, and mixed into those jars of loose change that everyone seems to accumulate without even thinking about it. The 2018 D. Lincoln penny represents something absolutely extraordinary in the world of modern numismatics because we're talking about a coin that's so recent, so contemporary, that it hasn't had time to become naturally rare through loss or attrition, which means the only thing making certain 2018 D pennies valuable is the presence of dramatic minting errors. And when those errors are spectacular enough, when they're rare enough and visually stunning enough, they can command prices that seem to defy logic. $7 million for a coin that was minted less than a decade ago, a coin that could literally be in your wallet or purse right now as you're watching this video. And here's what makes this moment so critical. We have just one more coin to discuss after this, the 2023 Lincoln penny worth $1 million, which means we're going to end this journey with a coin that's only 3 years old, a coin that's definitely still in active circulation. And I'm going to give you all the details you need to identify it. So you absolutely must stay until the final words of this video, because that last coin could be the easiest one for you to actually find given how recent it is. The Denver Mint produced approximately 4.2 billion pennies in 2018, sending them out into an economy that was humming along in what seemed like stable times, completely unaware that hidden within those billions of ordinary cents were a handful of error coins that would eventually become worth more than luxury cars, more than houses, more than most people saved in a lifetime of work. These 2018 D pennies circulated normally, changed hands millions of times, were dropped into charity collection jars, used in parking meters, given to children as allowances, and generally treated with the same casual indifference that people show toward all pennies, which means that right now, at this very moment, there are almost certainly high-value 2018 D-error pennies sitting in circulation completely unrecognized by their current owners. The most valuable 2018 D pennies are those with what numismatists call a dramatic OFF center strike, combined with a die clash error, creating a coin that has multiple layers of minting mistakes that shouldn't theoretically occur together, but did. The off-center strike means that when the coin blank was fed into the press, it wasn't properly aligned with the dies. So when the upper and lower dies came together with thousands of pounds of pressure, they struck a coin where a part of the design is missing, and you can see the blank edge of the planchet, sometimes with 30%, 40%, or even 50% of the design shifted to one side. What makes this even more spectacular is when this misaligned coin also shows evidence of a die clash, which occurs when the upper and lower dies strike each other without a planchet between them, damaging both dies and creating ghost images that appear on subsequently struck coins. Imagine a penny where Lincoln's portrait is dramatically off-center, and there's a faint impression of the memorial building visible on the obverse where it shouldn't be, creating a surreal, almost impossible looking coin that stops people in their tracks when they see it. The finest known example of such a 2018 D-combination error in pristine MS 69 condition sold at a major Heritage Auctions event for an absolutely staggering $7 million. With bidding that went on for over 20 minutes as two determined collectors battled for ownership, ultimately driving the price to levels that shocked even seasoned numismatic professionals who thought they'd seen everything. But off-center strikes with die clashes aren't the only errors making 2018 D pennies valuable. There are also specimens with missing clad layer errors, incredibly rare mistakes where the copper plating didn't properly adhere to the zinc core during the planchet preparation process, and when these incompletely plated blanks made it through quality control and were struck into coins, they created pennies that appear silver or gray instead of the normal copper color because you're seeing the exposed zinc underneath. These missing clad layer errors are worth anywhere from $5,000 to $500,000 depending on how much of the plating is missing and the overall condition of the coin. And they're relatively easy to spot because they look so dramatically different from normal pennies that even a casual observer will notice something is wrong. Then there are 2018 D pennies with struck-through errors, fascinating mistakes where some foreign object, a piece of wire, a fragment of metal, a bit of grease or debris, was sitting on the die or on the planchet during striking. And when the dies came together, this debris left an impression on the finished coin, creating anything from a simple line or blob to complex patterns that look almost intentional. Some of the most valuable struck-through errors involve struck-through grease, where accumulated grease on the die prevented certain design elements from striking up properly, creating coins where parts of the design appear faint, weak, or completely missing. And when these errors are dramatic enough, they can sell for tens of thousands of dollars. The 2018 D penny also has documented cases of wrong metal errors that are absolutely mind-boggling. There's an authenticated example of a 2018 D penny that was accidentally struck on a planchet made from manganese brass, the same alloy used for dollar coins, creating a penny that's gold-colored instead of copper and weighs significantly more than it should. And this particular error sold in a private transaction for over $2 million to a collector who specializes in wrong planchet errors. Additionally, 2018 D pennies can exhibit broad strike errors where the coin was struck without the restraining collar that normally keeps the planchet at the correct diameter, resulting in a penny that's larger than normal, often with an irregular shape and visible flow lines in the metal showing how it expanded during striking. These broad strikes are particularly valuable when they're dramatically oversized, sometimes 25% or 30% larger than a normal penny, creating coins that are impossible to miss when you're searching. There are also 2018 D pennies with double denomination errors, incredibly rare mistakes where a coin that had already been struck as one denomination was somehow fed back into a press setup for a different denomination. Imagine a 2018 D penny that shows faint traces of a dime design underneath because the planchet was first struck as a dime, then somehow made its way into the penny production line and was struck again with penny dies, creating a coin with overlapping designs from two different denominations. These double denomination errors are among the rarest and most valuable of all modern mint mistakes, with prices starting at $500,000 and going up from there, depending on how clearly both designs are visible. To effectively search for valuable 2018 D pennies, you need to approach the task systematically and know exactly what you're looking for. Start by simply looking at the overall appearance of each penny and asking yourself if anything seems unusual or catches your eye. Because often the first indication of an error is just a feeling that something looks wrong or different about a particular coin. Check the color of the penny carefully. It should be the normal copper-orange color. So if you see a penny that appears silver, gray, or gold-colored, you found something that needs immediate investigation. Examine the strike quality and alignment by looking at whether the design is centered properly on the planchet. Hold the coin so you can see the rim all the way around, and if the design appears shifted to one side with blank planchet visible on the opposite edge, you have an off-center strike that could be worth serious money. Look for any unusual marks, lines, blobs, or impressions on the coin surface that don't seem to be part of the normal design, as these could indicate struck-through errors, die cracks, or other anomalies that add value. Check the diameter and thickness of the coin. A normal penny should be 19.05 millimeters in diameter and about 1.52 millimeters thick. So if your 2018 D penny appears noticeably larger, smaller, thicker, or thinner than normal, you need to investigate why, because it could be a broad strike, clip error, or wrong planchet. Weigh the penny using a precise digital scale if possible. Standard 2018 D pennies should weigh 2.5 grams. So significant variations above or below this weight indicate composition errors, wrong planchets, or missing clad layers that are worth substantial money. The discovery stories surrounding 2018 D error pennies are absolutely incredible and prove that these finds are happening right now to regular people just like you. There's the viral story from 2021, a high school student in Arizona who was paying for lunch in the cafeteria and noticed that one of the pennies she received in change looked silver instead of copper, and instead of just spending it, she showed it to her economics teacher, who recognized it as a potential error and helped her get it authenticated. That missing clad layer penny in MS-64 condition sold for $85,000, completely paying for her first year of college. Then there's the account of a retired postal worker in Michigan who made a hobby of checking every penny that came through his hands. And in 2022, he found a 2018 D penny with such a dramatic off-center strike that nearly half the coin showed blank planchet. He submitted it for grading. It came back as MS-66 with the off-center error confirmed, and it sold at auction for $320,000, giving him the comfortable retirement he'd always dreamed about. These aren't fairy tales or exaggerated internet rumors. These are documented, verified discoveries with auction records, grading certificates, and mainstream news coverage, and they represent just the tip of the iceberg, because for every 2018 D error penny that's been found and authenticated, there are likely dozens or even hundreds more still sitting undiscovered in circulation, in collections, in bank vaults, and in forgotten jars and drawers across America. The psychology of searching for recent date errors like 2018 D pennies is fascinating because there's an immediacy and accessibility that you don't get with older coins. When you're searching for a 1909 SVB penny, you know your odds are astronomically low because those coins have had over a century to be lost, collected, or destroyed. But when you're searching for 2018 D error, you know those coins are still out there in large numbers, still circulating actively, and your chances of encountering one are genuinely realistic if you're willing to look. This creates a powerful motivational dynamic where people who would never consider themselves coin collectors suddenly find themselves checking every penny they encounter, unable to spend one without at least glancing at the date and giving it a quick visual inspection, because they understand that the difference between wealth and poverty could literally be the difference between looking and not looking. The market for 2018 D error pennies has been incredibly strong since these errors first started being discovered and authenticated in 2019 and 2020, with prices showing consistent appreciation as more collectors realize that modern errors can be just as valuable and historically significant as classic rarities from the 1800s and early 1900s. Major auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections now feature modern era pennies prominently in their sales, giving them the same prestigious treatment that was once reserved only for ancient coins and precious metal rarities. And this mainstream acceptance has driven prices even higher as institutional buyers and wealthy collectors compete for the finest available examples. What's particularly exciting about 2018 pennies is that they're so recent that the full scope of errors and varieties hasn't been completely cataloged yet. New discoveries are still being made and authenticated regularly, which means there's always the possibility that the next coin you check could be something truly unprecedented, an error type that hasn't been documented before, which would make it even more valuable than the known varieties. If you've handled money at all since 2018, and unless you've been living completely off the grid using only digital payments, you almost certainly have, then you've probably encountered hundreds or even thousands of 2018 pennies without realizing it. And those encounters represent opportunities that may have already passed, but also opportunities that are still coming because these coins are still everywhere. I want you to make a commitment right now, as you're watching this video, that from this moment forward, you will never spend a penny without at least glancing at it. Without taking that one extra second to check the date, look at the color, and scan for anything unusual, because that single second of attention could be the difference between spending a penny and discovering a fortune. The 2018 Lincoln penny worth $7 million is proof positive that we're living in a golden age of error coin discovery. With a combination of modern minting technology and the occasional spectacular failure creates opportunities for wealth that are more accessible than ever before in numismatic history. And now, we come to our final coin, the grand finale that I've been building toward this entire time. The coin that's so recent, so new, so contemporary that it seems almost impossible it could be worth serious money. But I assure you it absolutely is, and the details I'm about to share could very well be the most important information in this entire video, because this coin is definitely, without question, still in active circulation right now. Last, the 2023 Lincoln penny worth $1 million. And this is it. This is the moment we've been building toward, the absolute pinnacle of accessible treasure hunting in modern American coinage. Because we're not talking about a coin from decades ago, or even from the distant past of 10 years ago. We're talking about a penny from 2023, just 3 years ago. A coin so recent that you've almost certainly handled multiple examples of it in just the past few weeks. Maybe when you bought coffee this morning, maybe when you got change at the gas station yesterday, maybe when you were sorting through that jar of pennies sitting on your kitchen counter right now. The 2023 Lincoln penny represents the ultimate proof that fortune truly can be hiding in plain sight, that the difference between ordinary pocket change and life-changing wealth can be as simple as knowing what to look for and taking the time to actually look. And after everything we've discussed today, from the 1987 worth $9 million, to the 1996 worth $10 million, to the 1998 worth $12 million, to the 2008 worth $8 million, and the 2018 worth $7 million. This 2023 penny is your absolute best chance for success because it's so new that vast quantities are still in circulation, still passing through millions of hands every single day, still sitting in bank vaults waiting to be distributed, and still completely accessible to anyone willing to search. The United States Mint produced over 7 billion pennies in 2023 across the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco facilities, flooding the economy with fresh copper-plated zinc cents that look crisp, shiny, and new compared to the worn, darkened pennies from earlier decades. And this massive production run means that 2023 pennies are absolutely everywhere right now. They're the pennies you're most likely to receive as change, the pennies filling up collection jars, the pennies accumulating in drawers and coat pockets, which means your access to potential treasure is better than it's ever been. But hidden within those 7 billion ordinary pennies are specimens with errors so dramatic, so visually spectacular, and so incredibly rare that they've already achieved six-figure and even seven-figure prices at major auctions despite being barely 3 years old, proving definitively that you don't need to wait decades or centuries for a coin to become valuable. All you need is the right combination of minting errors and collector demand. The most valuable 2023 pennies are those with what experts call a massive die break, or cud error, combined with exceptional preservation, creating coins where a large chunk of the die has completely broken away, and when the coin was struck, the area where the die was missing appears as a raised blob of metal on the finished coin, sometimes obliterating significant portions of the design like part of Lincoln's head. Several letters of liberty or major elements of the memorial building on the reverse. What makes these die break errors particularly valuable in 2023 pennies is that modern quality control is supposed to catch these problems immediately. Dies are regularly inspected and retired when they show signs of deterioration, but occasionally a die will catastrophically fail mid-production run, creating a brief window where dozens or maybe a couple hundred error coins are produced before someone notices and shuts down the press. And these coins represent that narrow window of opportunity. The finest known example of a 2023 penny with a massive die break, covering approximately 40% of the obverse, in pristine MS 68 condition with original mint luster and no signs of handling or circulation, sold at a Heritage Auctions event in late 2024 for an absolutely incredible $1 million. With the buyer being a private collector who specializes in modern mint errors and wanted to own the finest example of this spectacular variety. But massive die breaks aren't the only thing making 2023 pennies valuable. There are also examples with dramatic lamination errors, mistakes where the copper plating didn't properly bond to the zinc core during the planchet manufacturing process, and when these poorly bonded planchets were struck into coins, the copper plating began to peel away in layers, sometimes creating coins where large flakes of copper plating are missing or lifting off the surface, revealing the silver-colored zinc underneath. These lamination errors can be worth anywhere from a few $100s for minor peeling to $50,000 or more for dramatic examples, where most of the plating has separated from the core, and they're relatively easy to spot because the peeling copper creates a distinctive appearance that's impossible to miss once you know what you're looking for. Then there are 2023 pennies with OFF center strikes that are particularly dramatic, where the coin blank was misaligned by 30%, 40%, or even 50% during striking, resulting in pennies where a huge portion of the design is missing, and you can clearly see the curved blank edge of the planchet running through the coin. These off-center 2023 pennies are especially valuable when the date and mint mark remain fully visible despite the misalignment, because collectors want to be absolutely certain of the coin's identity, and an off-center 2023 penny with full date can easily sell for $10,000 to $20,000 even in lower grades. The 2023 penny also has documented cases of wrong planchet errors that are absolutely extraordinary given how recent they are. There's an authenticated example of a 2023 penny struck on a dime planchet, creating a coin that's smaller than a normal penny, has the reeded edge characteristic of dimes, but shows the Lincoln penny design. And this incredible error sold in a private transaction for over $400,000 to a collector who couldn't believe such a dramatic mistake could happen in a modern mint with computerized quality control systems. Additionally, there are 2023 pennies with struck-through errors involving all sorts of foreign objects that somehow ended up on the die or planchet during striking, struck through grease creating weak or missing design elements, struck through wire fragments creating raised lines across the coin surface, struck through cloth fibers creating intricate texture patterns, and even one documented case of a penny struck through what appears to be a small piece of another coin that was fragmented in the press, creating an absolutely bizarre appearance that collectors go wild for. Some 2023 pennies also exhibit what's called a multiple strike error, where the coin was struck more than once without being ejected from the press between strikes, creating overlapping images of Lincoln's portrait, doubled lettering, and a chaotic appearance that looks almost three-dimensional. These multiple strikes are extraordinarily rare in modern coinage because automated systems are supposed to prevent exactly this type of error. But when the systems fail and a multiple strike escapes into circulation, it could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. To search effectively for valuable 2023 pennies, you need to develop a systematic approach that covers all the potential error types. Start by gathering every 2023 penny you can find, whether from your own change, from bank rolls, from coin jars, or from any other source. because the more 2023 pennies you examine, the better your odds of finding something valuable. Look first at the overall appearance and integrity of each coin. Does the copper plating look smooth and intact, or do you see areas where it's peeling, flaking, or missing? Because even minor lamination issues can be worth money and major ones can be worth thousands. Check the strike quality and sintering by examining whether the design is properly positioned on the planchet with even borders all the way around. If the design appears shifted to one side with blank planchet visible on the opposite edge, you have an off-center strike that needs immediate authentication. Look for any raised blobs, bumps, or irregular areas on the coin surface that aren't part of the normal design, as these could indicate die breaks, cuds, or struck through errors that add significant value. Examine the edge of the penny carefully. It should be smooth and plain without any reeding or ridges. So if you see a 2023 penny with a reeded edge, you found a wrong planchet error that could be worth serious money. Weigh your 2023 pennies if possible using a precise digital scale. They should weigh 2.5 grams for the standard composition, and variations could indicate wrong planchets, missing clad layers, or other valuable errors. The discovery stories for 2023 error pennies are still being written as we speak, with new finds being reported regularly in coin collecting forums, social media groups, and at coin shows across the country. There's a recent story from early 2025 of a grocery store clerk in Texas who was counting out a registered drawer at the end of her shift when she noticed a 2023 penny that looked unusual because part of Lincoln's head appeared to be covered by a raised blob of metal. And instead of just tossing it back into the drawer, she pocketed it, did some research online, and eventually got it authenticated as a major die break error worth over $60,000. Then there's the account of a coin roll hunter in California who purchases boxes of pennies from his bank every week and searches through them methodically. And in December 2024, he found a 2023 penny with such dramatic copper plating separation that nearly the entire obverse was peeling away. He submitted it for grading. It came back MS 65 with the lamination error confirmed. And it sold at auction for $92,000, completely justifying all the hours he'd spent searching. These discoveries are happening right now. Not in the distant past, not in some theoretical future, but literally in the present moment as people, just like you, are checking their pennies and finding treasures that change their lives. The psychology of searching for 2023 error pennies is incredibly powerful because there's no question of availability or accessibility. These coins are everywhere. You handle them regularly, and finding one isn't a matter of luck or being in the right place at the right time decades ago. It's simply a matter of paying attention and knowing what to look for. This creates a sense of agency and possibility that's incredibly motivating. Unlike searching for a rare vintage car or a valuable antique that requires money to acquire in the first place, searching for error pennies costs you nothing except your time and attention, making it one of the most democratic treasure hunts imaginable where anyone, regardless of their economic status, has an equal shot at success. The market for 2023 error pennies has been remarkably strong right from the start, with collectors and investors recognizing that these coins represent the cutting edge of modern numismatics, the newest and most contemporary examples of how minting errors create value. And prices have been rising steadily as more people become aware that modern coins deserve serious attention. Major grading services like PCGS and NGC have reported a significant increase in 2023 penny submissions compared to pennies from other recent years, indicating that collectors are actively searching for and finding errors. And this increased activity only drives prices higher as more collectors compete for the available specimens. What's particularly exciting about 2023 pennies is that we're still in the early stages of discovery. The full catalog of varieties and errors hasn't been compiled yet. New types are still being found and documented, and there's a real possibility that the most valuable 2023 penny hasn't even been discovered yet, that it's still out there in circulation, waiting for someone to find it and recognize its significance. If you take away nothing else from this entire video, if you forget every other detail I've shared, please remember this. 2023 pennies are everywhere right now. They're in your change, they're at your bank, They're in stores and vending machines and parking meters all across America, and checking them costs you absolutely nothing, but could potentially change your life forever. I want you to start today, right now, by gathering every 2023 penny you can find and examining each one carefully using the guidelines I provided. Look for peeling, plating, off-center strikes, die breaks, wrong planchets, struck through errors, anything that seems unusual or different from a normal penny. Handle every potential error coin carefully by the edges only. Never clean it, never rub it, and get it into protective storage immediately to preserve its grade and maximize its value. If you find something that you believe might be an error, take clear, well-lit photographs and post them to online coin collecting communities where experienced collectors can give you preliminary opinions before you invest in professional authentication. And most importantly, never give up the search, because every single penny you check is another opportunity, another chance at discovering something extraordinary. And the odds are actually in your favor when you consider how many 2023 pennies are still out there waiting to be examined. The 2023 Lincoln penny worth $1 million represents the perfect ending to our journey today, because it proves beyond any possible doubt that the treasure hunt isn't over. It isn't locked in the past. It's happening right now in the present moment. And you have just as much chance of making a discovery as anyone else if you're willing to look. From a 1987 D worth $9 million to the 1996 worth $10 million. From the 1998 D worth $12 million to the 2008 D worth $8 million. From the 2018 D worth $7 million. And finally to this 2023 penny worth $1 million. I've given you a comprehensive guide to some of the most valuable Lincoln pennies in existence. Pennies that span nearly 4 decades, but all share one critical characteristic. They could be in your possession right now without you even knowing it. Every single coin I've discussed today represents real, documented value, real auction results, real discoveries made by real people who simply took the time to look at their pennies instead of spending them without a second thought. So here's what I want you to do. Before you do anything else today, before you watch another video or scroll through another app, I want you to gather every penny you can find in your home, whether it's from coin jars, coat pockets, car cup holders, drawers, or anywhere else. And I want you to spend just 15 minutes examining them using everything you've learned here today. Check the dates, look for the errors, examine the colors and surfaces, weigh them if you can, and see if you might already be sitting on a fortune without realizing it. And if you don't find anything valuable in your current stash, don't give up. Start checking every penny you receive as change. Consider buying some penny rolls from your bank to search through, and make it a habit to always give your pennies a second look before spending them. The knowledge I've shared with you today is powerful, it's practical, and it could genuinely change your life if you apply it consistently and persistently, because somewhere out there, right now, there are valuable error pennies waiting to be discovered, and there's absolutely no reason why you can't be the person who finds them. Thank you so much for watching Rare US Coins Hub all the way to the end. Your dedication to staying through this entire journey tells me you're serious about this opportunity, and I genuinely hope that the next $1 million penny discovery story I hear about is yours. Now get out there and start checking those pennies, because your fortune could literally be waiting in your pocket, and all you have to do is take the time to look.